Hello and welcome back to the Team Called Palace YouTube channel. As you can see today, I'm joined by an EFL guru, my friend and colleague, Ali Maxwell of the Not the Top 20 podcast. We are going to be discussing Crystal Palace's new signing, Adam Wharton. Ali, let's get into it. How excited should Palace fans be about this signing?
Well, I would be very excited if I was a Palace fan because Adam Wharton is someone that makes football fun to watch. And my perception is that at times over the last few seasons, and probably right now, there is a sense among the Palace fans that the football that they're watching could be a little more fun to watch. And of course, with Michael Olise, with Ebere Eze, who are also popular graduates of the EFL who can impact the game in the final third and in transition really well. I think that you already have a couple of players who, in the right team, could elevate Palace's style of play to being really aesthetically pleasing and exciting and attacking. But obviously, there's still a way to go. And I think the signing of Adam Wharton will at least help that transition, if that is to be Palace's future under the next manager, for example, or going forward, because he is first and foremost a real ball player, an incredible technician for someone of his age who just turned 20. And I think in deeper midfield areas, which is where he operates, unlike Eze and Elise, obviously, that is something that he will certainly bring, all being well, and as long as his development continues.
Obviously, Palace fans know that Adam Wharton is a young midfielder from Blackburn. They may even know that he's left footed. Obviously, we saw him briefly off the bench against Brighton at the weekend. But what type of midfielder is he? As you said, he's not an Ebere Eze. He's not really even a Jefferson Lerma or a Czech Decore, is he? So, what type of player is he?
Well, I haven't seen Will Hughes play loads over the last few years, but I suppose in the Palace team, that would be the most similar profile in that he is a left footer, he is languid on the ball, and very good passing range. You know, if you don't put pressure on Adam Wharton, he will just pick passes. He will fizz the ball into the feet of attacking players in between the lines. He will spray the ball out wide if someone's holding width, like Elise. He will play balls over the top or through balls to a striker if you've got one that's comfortable running onto it as well. He is not just a sort of circulator type. This isn't a defensive midfielder who's keen just to recycle the ball, to be tidy, to look after it. Wharton's someone who wants to impact the game and break opposition defenses down with quality forward passing. And so that's kind of the best part of his game, I would say. He's happy to drive forward on the ball. But probably it's more what he does when he's receiving it in tight spaces, when he's drawing pressure and drawing a man onto him and then popping the ball off so that attack can kind of develop from there. I think that's probably where you'll see the best of Wharton. Now, as I think you've already seen in such a short period so far, the way that he plays is risky. And that's attractive to managers, but of course it does come with some downsides or some risks. So he is a serious purveyor of baiting players onto him, of reaching a moment where you are convinced he doesn't know someone is about to tackle him and then passing the ball off into a teammate. And the reason that's so valuable is you get players who are happy to pass the ball, but when there's pressures on them, you know, they want to play safe, they want to play back. And you don't develop attacks that way, and you don't become a really good attacking team playing in that conservative way. So what happens occasionally is a player like this holds on to it too long and they get tackled. And if they're in a dangerous central area at the base of midfield, clearly that is pretty risky when it comes to the opposition getting good opportunities. But in the main, I think that trait, albeit there's a risk reward to it, I think that's really attractive to managers at the very top level. If you watch the very top midfielders now, if you watch, dare I say it, De Zerbi's Brighton, sorry to make that comparison, this is the sort of style and qualities that people look for in defensive midfielders in the Premier League. Because if you don't play that high risk style, you've probably got a bit of a ceiling on how good you're going to be.
And this is one of the issues that Palace have had, especially this season, especially since Czech Decore's been out injured. Mark Gahey and Joachim Andersen are both very good at playing the ball out of defence. They're both very good at either bringing out dribbling or playing passes. But when the ball goes into midfield, it does kind of feel as though sometimes it gets stuck and we
Mm.
can't then get the ball to the likes of Eze and Elise. So hopefully Adam Wharton is going to help with that. I mean, in terms of the fee, some Palace fans, I think, were a little bit surprised about how much we've paid for him. We believe it's £18 million, possibly rising to 22 million. Now, some Palace fans will look at where Blackburn are in the Championship. They might know a little bit about Blackburn's situation, and they might think, do you know what? Couldn't we have got him for a little bit cheaper than that? What do you make of the fee? Do you think it's a fair one?
I have a bit of a strange relationship with transfer fees. Mainly, I don't really care about them. I think for a Palace fan, there's that interesting decision to make. You know, some fans would say, it's not my money, so why should I be worried if it's £5 million more than feels comfortable to me? There are, along the same vein, you might be the sort of fan that wants your team to spend money, and show ambition is often the word that's used. So in that sense, I don't really see the point in getting too stuck up in the exact transfer fees. And then there's the aspect of, you know, the qualities that Wharton has shown before turning 20 are very, very rare, and they are very, very attractive for the very, very top level of the game. And that's where Palace have to aspire to get to. So, of course, you can live your life as a Premier League team in that sort of mid-table bottom half zone, trying to get really good value. That is a good way of going about it. And you can sign players maybe with a bit more experience. And in particular, I think in Palace's case, you're able to sign players with good physical attributes who maybe lack a little bit on the technical side, or vice versa. You know, technical, skillful players, but maybe they're a bit inconsistent. Maybe they're a bit injury prone. You know, the perils and pitfalls of the transfer market in Palace's situation are clear to see. But you do have to pay for qualities that you think are potentially going to be world class. And that's what they will have seen in Adam Wharton. And the fact is that Championship clubs are now back on their feet post-COVID, and they are able to command these transfer fees. You know, a transfer value, in the sense that people want it to exist like it's a video game or like it's transfermarks.com. That's not how the transfer market works. The transfer market works because the price is set by what the selling club are willing to accept for the player. That the player doesn't have an inherent number attached to their head that goes up and down. That's not really how it works. So it's maybe not the answer that you want, but I would say don't sweat it. You have to pay that fee for a player that is just turning 20, that's played 50 games of senior football, so he's not completely wet behind the ears, who has shown serious development and, you know, this silky technical ability that everyone is after. And we've seen time and time again, and you've seen it with Elise, and you'll probably see it with Eza. You saw it with Wilfried Zaha. Palace have the ability, if they get this right, if they have made the right decision to sign Adam Wharton, they will potentially sell Adam Wharton for 4 times that in a couple of years' time. What could Wharton be at 25 as a left-footed, silky, almost Spanish style English central midfielder? Well, the sky's the limit for the transfer value of a player like that if one of the big clubs want them. So there's resale value aspects, but there's here and now aspects. He brings something that the team doesn't have at the moment. The only thing I'd say about Wharton is that he is, you know, he's only 20, and who knows what he will look like physically at age 25. But as you'll have seen already, he's quite slight. He's a bit gangly. He doesn't look particularly physically strong or athletic. And that's clearly the red flag, because most players that play in the centre of the park in the Premier League are at an incredible athletic level. And so rather than doing what some clubs do, which is buy young players that you feel are going to handle themselves physically and then try and develop the sort of IQ, the technical, mental side of the game from there, Palace have gone in a different direction. They're signing someone that they think of his age group is the best when it comes to the technical stuff, when it comes to match intelligence and IQ. And they just, I guess, hope that with the right strength and conditioning, in 3 years' time, he may have filled out and he may look a little bit more at home in those Premier League midfield battles.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. And I think also for me, it's all about who Adam Wharton is going to be playing alongside. As I mentioned, we have missed someone like Czech Decore, but when I think of Adam Wharton possibly playing in a midfield with Decore, with someone like Jefferson Lerma as well, I don't think his kind of lack of physicality will be an issue, because those guys can kind of supplement him in that respect. And he does have a bit more technical quality than someone like Lerma, for example. I mean, you mentioned the fact that Adam Wharton is someone who could conceivably be sold by Crystal Palace in a few years' time for 3 or possibly even 4 times the amount that we've paid for him. We've seen this in recent years with Palace. We like signing players from the Championship, the likes of Eze, Elise. Of course, Mark Gay, he had a loan spell at Chelsea before we signed, a loan spell at Swansea before we signed him from Chelsea. this is a very clear strategy. I've joked with you in the past about the fact that I think Dougie Freeman listens to the Not the Top 20 podcast because this is something that he likes to do. For a club like Palace, do you think this is a successful strategy? Do you think this is the right way to go about it? Buying these players from the Championship, giving them experience and exposure in the Premier League, and then possibly selling them on for a lot of money in the future?
Yeah, I don't see why not. I mean, so many different aspects to running a successful football club, particularly in that interesting sort of vortex that you guys are in the sort of bottom half mid-table of the Premier League, where there's so much jeopardy. It's very easy to have a bad season and get relegated, and it can be quite difficult to come back up. Albeit in the last few years, we are seeing teams relegated from the Premier League not struggle too much to bounce straight back up. So there's a lot of things that you have to balance. If you're just focusing on a transfer or recruitment strategy, it's very difficult to say that it isn't a successful one when, unless I'm forgetting some massive misses, not only have Palace got three major transfer assets, as you mentioned, in Eze, in Elise, and in Mark Guehi, that they didn't sign for like bank breaking money, but they are also three of your best players. They are three key players. So you can look at it as a sense of purely transfer value and profit and that sort of stuff. And in that sense, it seems like a good thing to do. But also, these are players that should, all being well, be proper Palace players and contribute to the first team for a number of years and help the team succeed on the field. And I think when we talk about transfer strategy, it's easy to get a little bit waylaid and forget that you do actually have to put a team out on the field that's ready to compete here and now. And that's where maybe the less sexy names are also important, with a bit more experience, with athleticism, with that bite, different profiles. So I think it has to be an all-round approach. You can't, there's a lot of focus on signing young players and developing them and selling them because you've built their resale value. And as part of a successful recruitment process, yes, you do need that, but you also need the players to impact the game here and now. And on this, in that sense, I think Wharton has to be seen as something of a development player. I would be uneasy about him being really strongly judged on the next few months, for example, because the step up is so big, because the Premier League is so different to the football that he's been playing. But I do hope that in flashes, as you'd have seen in the early days with Eze, as you'd have seen in the early days with Elise, I hope he will show Palace fans how much fun he can be in tight spaces, how much fun it is to watch him bounce passes off a teammate, make a little feint, find space elsewhere, get the ball back and flick it on first time over the top to an on-rushing fullback. Like, he has the vision and the ability to execute passes that you can't see as a fan and that his teammates probably don't have. So I really hope that in the short term you'll start seeing these flashes, that he will grow his own confidence, because I truly do believe that in a few years' time, there is a scenario where Wharton is one of the most exciting English players in the Premier League. And, you have to look across to Bournemouth. They signed Alex Scott for 25 million quid, was it, in the summer? And when we did our list of the most exciting EFL talents last season, we had Scott number one, we had Wharton number two. So I think it is a pretty fail-safe approach for a team in your position in terms of recruiting.
I think that point you made there about not judging him too quickly, giving him time to bed in, is a really important one because, as you know, as many people in football know, things aren't great at Palace right now. We've had some bad results, missing some key players, a lot of pressure on Roy Hodgson as well. So I think that is a really important point. And for me, I really hope that Palace fans give Wharton a bit of time to bed into the team, bed into the Premier League, because, as you said, there is a notable step up. I think also when you are playing for a team that are missing a number of their key players, it isn't going to be easy. We are going to need to be patient with him, but I do think that in the long run, it will be worthwhile. Ali, thank you so much for your time. I mentioned, of course, you are part of the Not the Top 20 podcast. Just for any Palace fans who possibly miss the EFL, obviously, when I say we miss it, we don't want to come back to it, but we still like the divisions below the Premier League. For any Palace fans that maybe want a bit of EFL content, can you just tell them a little bit about your podcast?
For sure, yeah, we're 8 years in, I think, to a commitment that I made with my friend George back in 2016 to cover the EFL with as much as possible the same level of depth and detail and insight and passion that the Premier League receives. And Premier League coverage is abundant, it's fairly saturated in my eyes, and I think it's almost quite difficult now because it's so noisy to find like really, really good stuff outside of fan creators such as yourself. So, what we want to be is the place to go if you are interested, not as a fan, if you're just interested in three leagues that are very different to the Premier League, that are highly competitive, that contain a lot of young talent, a lot of names that you'll recognise from former Premier League years that somehow have pitched up in League Two, fantastic managerial personalities, a lot of really good close title races, playoff battles, relegation battles. We have all the jeopardy that the Premier League has and more in the EFL. And I think we just try and be the ones to kind of serve it up to those who are interested in that level of football, and to try and provide some insight on the players that will inevitably end up being Premier League stars, like Ibere, like Elise, like Adam Wharton as well.
Absolutely. So yeah, if you want more EFL content, if you want to hear more from Ali, you can hear from him and George on the Not the Top 20 podcast. They have new episodes out every Monday and Thursday. And of course, if you want written content, you can check out ntt20.com as well. Obviously, for Palace content, stay with us here at the Team Called Palace. Myself and Ben will be back podding again very soon. In the meantime, stay well, Palace fans, and keep your chins up.